Hey, everybody. Welcome back to No Way. Tell Me Everything. My name is Jess. I am your host. And today I have with me Sidsel. And I'm going to have a little chat with her about Kundalini awakening, maybe talk a little about twin flames, and then see where the conversation kind of takes us. So I would just like to say, I think the way that we met is super fun and spiritual and, kind of explanatory of there are no coincidences, but there's a place called Plug and Heat Club that I'm going to again tomorrow because I love so very much. I go there like twice a week. It's this Copenhagen sauna theme where you go 3 rounds in a sauna. It's like 12 to 15 minutes each. You have somebody facilitating, generally has like a pretty spiritual internal vibe. And we met in the locker room because your friend, Radhika, who was visiting from London, didn't have a lock and wanted to lock some of her stuff. I'm very Copenhagen because I've been here for like 15 years now. So we don't talk to strangers, right? So I could hear the conversation going on and I just felt this nudge to be like, offer her to put her stuff in your locker. So I reached out. I just said, hey, listen, if you're worried about your stuff not being in a locker, you're welcome to use mine. And then it kind of kicked off from there and we all started talking. And then at the end, I could hear you trying to organize how to get back to the place where you were going. And Ubers were taking a while to get there and I had to go the same direction. So again, I felt that nudge of like, offer them a ride home. It's on your way, which is even more crazy, I think, than offering someone to put something in your locker. But, it was 2 women. So I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So then I offered. And then we get in the car and we did the kind of awkward, what do you do for a living and everything? And how did you guys meet? And then it came out pretty quickly that we were both psychic and you and Radhika also were very much into the spiritual world and that you do spiritual work, specifically a lot around Kundalini awakenings and coachings. So it's just one of those lovely circumstances where you feel that universal, sign or nudge to do something and you follow it. And then you end up meeting somebody who has a really interesting story. So with that very long intro, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you introduce yourself and what it is that you do?
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I'm very pleased that you decided to give us a ride that day. My name is Sidsel. I'm originally from Denmark, so that's also why I come there sometimes. But I've lived abroad for the past decade. I kind of have 2 different sides to what I do. I coach founders. And that has developed a lot, started being very technology focused. And now it's very much about like aligning with your higher self and like your soul's purpose and then taking like aligned action to drive you in the right direction. And then I also do Kundalini activation facilitation. And I see it as both like the same thing. It's like helping people align with their true path and also like elevating their energy so they can get there. But it's really cool to have those like the very feminine path of Kundalini activation, which is all about surrender. It's all about just like letting the energy do its thing. And then the coaching is quite masculine, quite focused on like actions. And I started out just doing coaching. I started full time like about a year ago. And I felt like when I discovered Kundalini, that was like the missing piece because it was like too much of a masculine approach. And now when I have both, it just feels like a very, very good balanced approach that I'm loving every second of it, although both parts are very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's really interesting. And one thing I love is that we do kind of similar things. I don't work with founders. I work primarily with women, but also to align with, who they are authentically and to live really authentic lives through action and alignment. And I think what's great is that there are so many coaches in the world. And sometimes you can kind of look at it and think, oh, they're just kind of all doing the same thing. But when you actually kind of talk with other coaches, everyone has different approaches to how they do it. I also work a lot with masculine and feminine energy, but I don't work with Kundalini. I work with, for example, I'll work more with goddess energy, for example. And it's such a great thing because you can really find what method and what way kind of works for you, because I'm sure you've gone through the same thing with your whole spiritual awakening, but you try different types of spiritual practices. And some stuff is like you said with Kundalini, it's like that missing piece. It's like this, I remember this in my soul. This is, I align so much with this. And some stuff it's like, not for me. And I think that's just so amazing how you can basically find so many different ways to do the same thing, but find the way that works for you. And I think Kundalini is something that I've done a number of times. I really like it. It's very powerful, but I think there's maybe something in the Eastern world that's much more known than in the Western world. So maybe it would be good for you to give a little bit of a background or kind of what is a Kundalini awakening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm also learning every day because it's such a complex topic. So I don't want to pretend like I am the expert at Kundalini awakening because I don't even think anyone that I'm aware of is,
Mm.
although a lot of people claim to be. So Kundalini is essentially from a Sanskrit term that means kunda or like coiled up. And it's usually depicted as like a snake because we have this idea that in an unawakened person, this energy is coiled up 3.5 times at the bottom of your spine, right? But a lot of people, when you mention Kundalini, say like, yeah, no, I've tried it. Like, but like what most people have heard of is probably Kundalini yoga. And Kundalini yoga is just, it's a process of like essentially like force or you for a process of will. It's like a masculine practice because you repeat certain exercises, breath work with the intention of awakening your Kundalini. And I love Kundalini yoga. There's like absolutely no shade to be had there, but it's a very like it's a science and it works, but you can do it for 10 years and like still not really feel like a big, massive like surge of energy. And then what I do is Kundalini activation processing, and it's essentially there like some people claim that you are awakening Kundalini there. I think it's a bit I'm not sure if we can even claim that, but the idea is that you're doing energy work on someone who's in a surrendered state. So like you're on your back with your palms facing upwards, your closed eyes. There's music. It's usually quite a intense experience. And then I'm working with energy to purify your system and your main energy channel so that it can give way for you to rise your own Kundalini. So I think anyone who claims that like they can just like magically raise your Kundalini, sure, that like the idea of like Shaktipada or gurus that sometimes have this like experience, they can deliver that to you. But I'm essentially clearing out your system so that your Kundalini can naturally rise. Even within that, having a full Kundalini awakening, a lot of people have like an intense experience and be like, oh, I'm awakened. I don't think it's that simple. I think very few people actually have like a full awakening. And the more I dive into it, the more I'm actually even like questioning. I've had experiences that were definitely at the time I was like, this is an awakening, but I'm always like, is there more? Like, is there a higher level? But either way, it's a process of purifying your system, raising your own energy. And I like to compare it to a Christmas tree because like it's like you have this Christmas tree with like lights on it, and it's a process of turning on all the lights that makes you you. So it's kind of like a remembrance. It's not you're not becoming someone else. It's literally just like you're getting back to your natural state of who you always were. And I think also when we're doing a lot of these like self work, like you do shadow work, you do therapy, you do breath work, it's almost like there's like an endless list of things you have to do in order to get there. And I think the beautiful thing about this work is that it ties into this whole duality of like, well, you're already whole, you're already like perfect as you are. You just have to like connect to that within you. And that's why I like my coaching is very much we need to do all these things to get you there. But my Kundalini work is very much let's just peel back the layers and find back to your true nature. So I like the duality of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it is a duality, right? You need both parts of that. I mean, when I work with people, a lot of it I call it healing work, but it is exactly what you said. It's who are you at your core and how does that align to how you want to express yourself in the world and how you want to live, right? So, I've recently taken a much more empowered stance on how I talk about it as part of my evolution because I took the softer side of talking about how you evolve into your authentic self, how you peel back the layers, how you decondition, how you discover, what you actually want out of your life and how you want to show up for that way. And that was really aligned with me at that point because of the work that I was doing with my own shadow work, my own healing, my own integration. And I think what I noticed with myself and with others in this space is we have a very strong instinct to stay in what we know. So when you start healing, that becomes your comfort area. And that feels safe, even though that's where all of the limitations are that are holding you back, all of the past trauma, it becomes comfortable to live there because you get to know that and you have to pull yourself out of it. And part of that is that duality and that balance of you can work on the things that are holding you back. You can, accept that these things have happened to you, accept this conditioning has happened to you while not over identifying with it and allowing it to rule who you are now. So I've taken this much more empowered stance of like, you need to glow the F up. Who do you want to be? How do you want to express yourself? You're going to create your reality based on what you believe is possible and the actions you take and aligning with that authentic version of yourself. And you need to do that in 2 steps because you can't pretend that things didn't happen to you if you've had I work with a lot of people with trauma, right? It's bypassing to just not acknowledge and release that, but you have to actually release it. You can't really stay in this area. And I think also what you said about the Christmas tree really resonates with me because I agree. I don't think if I'm honest, in my experience with the Kundalini and what I've seen of it, I don't know that you were necessarily supposed to awaken in one go. Because if you think about it, you're probably not ready for that. Like, I think you are always evolving. I'm certainly always evolving. I'm always learning new things. I'm always, changing how I show up and how I express myself based on each step I take towards authentic alignment. If the universe was to blow the top off my head with the full blown, Kundalini activation, I feel like that would be very hard to deal with when I first started doing Kundalini work. I mean, I act like I'm a expert here. I think I've done like 3 activations, but if I think back to where I was like 2 years ago when I did it the first time, if they had given me the kind of activation I had on my 3rd time, I feel like I would have gone into psychosis or something. Like, it would not have been healthy.
But the energy is intelligent and the process is intelligent too. So like, I very much believe that you're getting what what you can handle.
Yeah, exactly.
At least with this process. I think with some of the Kundalini yoga, it can be a bit dangerous because you're creating this force, and it's kind of like a champagne bottle that you're like stirring, and then suddenly you can like pop open. So I think that can be very destabilizing. But this process of Kundalini activation is like a gentle awakening. And I think you saying you had a lot more of a wild experience at the 3rd time was probably because you were ready for that.
Yeah, totally.
I've yet to see someone in my experience that have had more than they could handle at that time. I also, it kind of resonates with me, but that your soul has already chosen whether you will be awakened. Like you've kind of chosen going into a life, whether that life will be a awake one or not awakened one. I think it's funny because reflecting my own story, up until I was 30, I was the least awakened person. I was like so atheist, so nothing happens for a reason. That was like the structures that I had in my mind. And I think my soul chose that so that I could experience like the duality of life and understand both sides of things. Because I think had I been someone who was like born having these things yeah, that's how the world works, I don't think I would have been as like empathetic to the other worldview. And I think that's my path. And I think some people awaken, some people won't awaken. Ultimately, like, I think it's about listening to your own calling. If there's something in you that says this is something I need to do, or I want to explore more, then there's probably something to it. But I'm never the one to force people. If people are like, I don't want to do it, like, don't do it then.
No, I mean, that's my same philosophy when I'm helping people or guiding people. It's like I have this huge toolbox that I've built from my life experiences, all my certifications, all my learnings that I can use to help you find what works for you. But ultimately, you're doing this yourself. You're doing the work yourself. Like you were saying with how you do the Kundalini activation. When I do an activation with somebody and I use quantum healing energy, it's not me fixing or unlocking your energy. It's you working on blocks that are holding that energy. And the quantum energy is helping you to basically like loosen that knot. It's just loosening the process that you're going through. You have to do the work yourself. And part of that is, does this work for you or not? If I tell you, hey, we can do something with journaling, and you're like, I don't like journaling, I've tried it, it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to force you to journal because that's not going to work for you. You have to find out what actually calls to you, which is, interesting because you're talking about how you're going to Burning Man for the first time. And I was saying like, I would never want to do that because I don't think I'd like it. And you said, well, I always try everything. And I think that's such a great life thing to have, of just being like, I feel like I want to try this. I feel like it's an experience I want to try. And if I don't like it, I can always leave.
I think that's probably just my soul in general. Like, I've decided that I want to try everything once, even when I know that I might not like it, because I think my calling is around helping people like really grow at like accelerated speeds into the most authentic version of them. And I find that as a coach and a guide, I like to have tried something firsthand. Also because I'm probably just more courageous than most. Like I don't sit and dwell over things. I just do them, right? So I'm like, I will try everything because then at least I can tell people what I think about it, and then they can make up their mind.
Totally.
And I'm not a raver. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. Like, I'm going to be completely sober and probably have a very different experience than lots of people, but I'm sure it'll be really uncomfortable. Just, I'm a princess. Like, I don't do dust. I don't do dirt, but like, that's why I'm doing it, because I'm aware that whenever I'm like too comfortable, I probably need to like stir things up. Back to you saying like, oh, if something doesn't work for you, I absolutely agree. But I will say, as a coach, I kind of make it my thing to also ask why someone is hesitant to do something, because sometimes it's just that fear of change. And sometimes change is exactly what you need in order to become the person you want to be. Because like, I really believe that we're like the creator of our own reality. Like if you're not happy with something in your life, you can change that. Sometimes there's like a very deep rooted self concept that's preventing you from it. And then it's like, okay, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to change my self concept. But then it's like, okay, but do you want to stay the same or do you want to change your self concept and build that reality? And sometimes when you like nudge people a little bit, they end up being like, yeah, okay, like actually I do want to do this, but I'm just uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're not
Mm,
happy about something, you have to investigate why. Why are you not happy and what's holding you back? Because a lot of times we're holding ourselves back because of that fear. You know,
mm,
we're scared of something we don't know or something failing, or something I've been talking a lot about now is self sabotaging, and how it's actually an extreme way of loving yourself. It's a protective mechanism that you
mm,
do, and you don't understand how you're self sabotaging and how sneaky it is and how it shows up in ways you don't even understand. And sometimes it comes from fear and sometimes it comes from misalignment. So, working on understanding,
mm,
am I misaligned and this isn't actually something I want? So, my subconscious is helping me get out of it by doing some sort of self sabotage.
mm,
Or am I really scared about failing at something? So if I
mm,
don't do it, I can't fail. And why is that a fear for me? Well, it's a fear because if I don't fail at it, it doesn't prove that I'm not good enough, which is my block that I have around self-worth. So it is like you do, I have the most Delulu energy. Like I'm probably the same way as you. Like I'm a little bit more fearful about like, I'm not going to jump out of a plane, but I'm very Delulu of like if I get the nudge to do something, I'm going to try it at the very least, because worst case scenario is I find out I don't actually want that, or I don't like it, but I learned something from it.
mm,
Or I like to use the word fail. I know people don't like to use the word fail because you always learn something, and I fully subscribe to that. But
mm,
I actually would like to destigmatize failing, because failing is fine. It is fine to fail. It means you tried in the first
mm,
place, and you'll eventually succeed in stuff that is what you actually want to do, that's aligned for you. And part of that is pushing past it. And I think that's also why people do end up working with coaches, is because they know there's something that needs to change. They know there's something they want to do. They just don't know how to do it, or they need someone. I mean, a lot of what I do is empowerment coaching. So a lot of times it's like I'm your hype girl in the background. That's just like, I'm so proud of you that you took that little step. That's all you have to do,
mm.
or that little mindset shift. It's not always a huge transformation in one go. Sometimes it's just that little mindset shift or that little step that leads to it eventually, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I only work with founders. So when you're a founder and you don't have a boss at all, it's like that.
Mm,
Like sometimes you just like you can focus on the operation, you can focus on the day to day, but you need that person who's going to hold you accountable for you taking the necessary steps to get to your business to where you said you wanted it. And
mm-hmm,
that can change sometimes. That's also okay. But it's just important for me that I help people kind of be accountable to the higher version of them. Because when things are tough, it's like, well, do I really need to hire someone and like be outside of my like comfort zone? And oh, do I really need to like develop into this new business area? And then I can be the person who's like, well, 6 months ago, you told me that this was your dream. And I use a lot of AI. I use a lot of like drawing back what people have previously said. Actually, all my calls are recorded and I have an AI trained on someone. So that I can always be like, you know what? Like, but this is what you want. But what you're currently doing is not going to get you there. So either we lower your goals or we spice it up. And when you put it like that, a lot of people are like, well, but I still want that house and I still want this life. Okay, go ahead and do it, right? But I'm really with you there.
yeah. I mean, I feel like I believe in manifestation as well, right? But it's such a nuanced topic. And again, it goes back to what I said of, if you believe in manifestation and you want to coach or you want to learn about it, you have to find the person who's speaking about it in a way that resonates with you.
Mm,
Because some people really love making vision boards. I love a good Pinterest collage vision board. It's gorgeous, but that's, in my belief, not going to be what changes. You have to change in the
mm,
inside, what's blocking you to get to where you're manifesting. But I also take it a step further in that if you're trying to manifest something that's not aligned with you, you will either not actually work towards it in the ways you need to actually get it, or you'll get it because it's a lesson to realize that you never actually wanted that in the
mm,
first place. So there's a lot of these like nuances you kind of have to understand, because sometimes, and I do this with myself, if you're not clear on who you are and what you're trying to do and setting those goals that are actually anchored to your authentic self or what you're trying to do, you set these goals and then you don't get to them, or you find out you don't want them, right? You have to like go through the path and learn the lessons along the way and realize these things. And then, I don't know, it's like I don't want to say it's a reward or there's tests. I think that's a little trivial in how it all works, but there's lessons in everything you do
Mm.
and you have to take them on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and also like when you manifest something, the word is being used so broadly, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes that shows up in a way that you're not like aware of. Like sometimes
You
that's a
have to be
lesson. If you
careful.
want something, it's in a lesson there. Or if you're manifesting something, but like forget important parts of it, you will get that like Timu version that
Yeah.
that you
Yeah. The
manifested,
Timu
right? It's like
version.
you're like, yeah, I wanted this, but I got that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really like funny. A thing that I'm also quite into is like just looking at the self concepts that you hold, because I think the manifesting is a great step. But then if you have all these self concepts that are blocking you from actually receiving, you'll end up like not succeeding with it. So I really like diving into that. And I personally also like to revisit my own like self concepts and my own beliefs. I don't think I'd be a good coach if I wasn't like doing this deep work on myself. I drag myself through all these the same like uncomfortable questions that I drag my clients to. And it's just interesting how our beliefs keep us safe and how our beliefs keep us from something. And it's also perfectly okay to like be like, this is not like I don't need a bigger business or I don't need a bigger life. Like what I care about is my relationship to my kids or whatever. But all I want is for someone to be rooted in authenticity and what's true for them. And that their beliefs are not kept small because of fear, but kept small because that is actually like that is what they wanted out of their life.
Yeah.
Like what do I want and why do I want it? That's
Yeah.
the second
Base
most
step.
important, and
Yeah.
and at what cost, right? And like I also think there's a lot of limiting beliefs entrepreneurs being like, well, if I want this I have to work like more, and it's like not necessarily, but if you create like a self concept around in order to be this successful I must work 15 hours a day, then of course you're manifesting that for yourself. But like then look at instead peeling back what lifestyle do you want, and then work from there so it's more in alignment. But yeah, absolutely, it's a tricky one. And I also manifest things that are not what I want, and then I pivot and
Absolutely.
I like admit my mistakes and then we take it
Yeah.
from there.
I mean, that's the part of being human, right? Like, I don't think any good coach or any good guide that you may have is going to try to pretend like they have everything figured out. I'm still going through a lot of erasing of limiting beliefs and past trauma things and past life things and real life practical lessons, because I believe that all of those things happen to me so that I can help others because I've been through it and I kind of know how that feels at the very least, right? I don't think that anyone's going to pretend like we're not humans, because we are. So we're also here living the human experience just in a, maybe different path, but that's also happening. I mean, I'm going through the founder thing right now. I left my job, I started my own business, and I part of what I wanted of owning my own business, the main thing is that I want to help other people. I want to be of service to others and to service to spirit, but I'm very adamant that I don't want to work like I was working, insane hours all the time. I believe that there is a much different way to work, which is more in the feminine energy, where I had been operating more in masculine, where I only work like 3 days a week. And that's hard because I still have these beliefs that I have to kill myself to be successful. So I'm constantly coaching myself right now. Like, I have to constantly pull myself back of like, there is another way, and you believe
Hmm.
that. And if you want to manifest it, you have to stay strong and stay true to that, because otherwise you're going to end up burning yourself out. You might as well be back in corporate doing what someone else tells you to do and at least getting pension and a bonus out of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for me, I've been self-employed for 4.5 years, and like it's with various things, but like it's definitely a journey and I'm still learning every day, right? But like I think right now the limiting belief I've noticed is there's some resistance to some level of success. Like I'm now where I'm like really comfortable, but I'm kind of like, oh, but do I want to like take my business to the next level? Like, would that mean that I'm really busy? And like, I also work very much in my feminine, like you, I have this like manifestation around, I work no more than like 4 hours a day. That's like my sweet spot. And yeah, there's definitely some resistance there where I'm like, well, if I take on more clients, will I be able to do that? And it's something that I'm actively working on, but I'm very aware of it. But I think the first thing we can do is like, as females, like talk about this, because like it's so hardwired within us, this whole like idea that, and you're living in Denmark, but like Denmark, it's like men and women are the same. Whatever men can do, women can do. I'm like, yeah, but not in the same way. Like we're not meant to work like men. And I think that was a mistake that I made for the first 31 years of my life. And I'm grateful. I'm now aware I'm not a man, and I'm not trying to be one.
Yeah. I will say I completely acknowledge the privilege that I have of living in Denmark. Like, the way of life here is so much more attuned to a little bit more life-work balance. But I honestly don't think anyone is meant to live the way that most people are living. I mean, my husband works all the time as well. He works very much in his masculine energy. He would love to have more freedom and more balance. I feel like we have built it around a super hyper masculinized version, right? And that's not good for anyone. But as you're saying, I work on my cycle. So next week, I know that I'm probably going to be having my period, and I moved all of my meetings so that I could just honor my energy there where I know I'm not going to feel good and be able to not worry about having interviews and stuff like that. I think Spain passed a law where you get, menstruation leave or something. But with that exception, there's no more tent days where you get taken care of in a tent by fellow women when you're bleeding. It's, you have to live in this masculinized world, and it's really, really bad for mental health, for energy, for happiness, for everything. I'm very strong worded about how I feel about capitalism and the patriarchy in general. And I'm also very strong about we have to at some point start to fight back. The whole trying to play by their rules thing, it doesn't work in any situation, really, or with oppression either. It doesn't work to just play along with it or to bypass it. You have to also stand up for yourself. And yes, it means that there are consequences sometimes, but I would rather stand in my values and stand up for myself and my self-worth and have a consequence come of it than bow to something that doesn't work for me and then be upset about it. And it doesn't have to be as dramatic as I'm making it sound right now, but asking for a raise, for example, women are notoriously just not good at that. So you're like, oh, nobody else got a raise. Or I've heard of situations and seen situations where female managers tell their employees like, oh, I really wish I could give you a raise, but I didn't get a raise even. And it's like, but that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. I got a promotion and I have more responsibility, and therefore I deserve this raise. And if you don't give me the raise, I'm not taking the position. And I firmly believe that if you're very rooted in your self-worth and you want to signal to the universe that you deserve more and that you're not willing to stand for less, you have to take that initiative. But you also have to be prepared that they might give the raise or promotion to someone else because you did that. It's not a choice I'm going to make for anyone. It's just something that I say, listen, you telegraph to the universe what you're willing to put up with in these situations. And if for whatever reason you're not willing to do it, that's your choice. It's everyone's journey. You do it. But I think that we need more women to stand up for ourselves.
I mean, absolutely. And it's great if we're aware of these things, but I think there's like an underlying belief that I've seen it myself, and I've seen it in close friends and people I work with. And it's this idea around like making yourself smaller or like making yourself like more likable, especially around men. Like, oh, I don't want to be too much. Or if I text this, will he still like me? If I text this, will I come across as needy? Or like, how do I like make people want me or like me more? And it's like, it's such a curse, but like we're indoctrinated this as like kids, like, and like through moms doing these things, and like, and I'm often like, for example, I like beauty. Like I like looking good. I've gotten a lot of beauty treatments over the years. And then as I was getting beauty treatment, I had a Kundalini activation around the same time early in the year. And I just went so deep because I was like, am I getting beauty treatments for me? Or am I getting beauty treatments in order to be more accepted and liked by the people around me? And like, I still can't fully answer that question. Like sometimes I'm not sure. Right. But so it's like, yes, we should ask for more money, but sometimes we're doing all these like small things that we don't even know that we're doing in order to like fit in and be liked. And if I could remove one curse, I would remove this.
Literally, this is the program that I'm doing right now, is about like stop playing small to be liked. And I get it because I've been there. Like, I also had a mom who conditioned me about, you need to be pretty, but not too pretty, because then women will find you threatening. But you have to be pretty because men have to like you and women have to want to be like you. But don't be too pretty. That's threatening. You have to be talkative and outgoing, but don't be too much for people because then they won't like you. And it was all rooted in this place of love, in her case, of safety and love and wanting me to be accepted and liked and everything. But it's such a toxic, dangerous game to play, because at the end of the day, the only person you have to answer to is you. So are you living the life that you want, or are you playing small? Are you not taking chances? And success is when that I'm currently working on releasing in myself, because I'm a very bold person and I'm very confident and I think I have the right to be. I know that what I do is transformational. I know the results that I get from the women that I work with, and I know how much I've transformed. But I have a limiting belief around, if I'm successful financially and otherwise, the people in my life will not support me and not love me. So I'm very much working with this situation right now within myself of, the people who truly love you will be supportive of you, and everyone else, they don't matter. And even the people in your life that love you, that you know will be supportive of you, in the end, that doesn't matter either. This whole idea that you can't be proud of yourself, or you can't be successful, or you can't have beauty treatments. I mean, I understand why you're like, I don't even know where it comes from. It's such an ingrained issue, right? Like, I love getting beauty treatments done. But I've also realized, since I stopped getting a lot of them done because I quit my job, that I actually like not getting beauty treatments done too. And it's helped me kind of accept parts of myself. But the only way you can kind of find it out is by working on it. And it is such a ingrained societal thing to tell women to be smaller, or to dim your light, and don't talk about yourself. It's that people don't like that. It sounds braggy, and then you have men out here who are just out here talking about all these huge accomplishments they've made, and then women, you'll talk to a woman and you're like, how's your business going? Oh yeah, it's going pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. And then you find out 60 minutes in that they did some gigantic, amazing thing, but they're not talking about it. And I feel like part of my purpose is to be really loud. That's the part of me that was suppressed for so much of my life, trying to do this balancing act of being likable, but not too much. And in reality, I look at women who are shouting about the stuff they're doing, and they're so inspiring to me, because I'm like, if they can do it and they can live this big life, then anybody can, right? What can I learn from these people? And I'm not doing this to be arrogant. I'm doing this because I think that seeing other women, like talking with you and talking about your founder business, and Annie, who I had on one of the previous weeks, who's doing her work, like, I want to give a platform to women to talk about the amazing things they're doing, because I think it's so important to help the whole collective. I have another woman who's going to be coming on, named Rita, and she's going to come talk about how you can get into activism without being worried about doing it wrong. And I think those kind of people, when you hear from them and you hear how they're taking these risks and how you're doing these big things and how you're going to Burning Man across the country, just to do some healing work and then also have an experience, like, those things are so inspiring to me.
Yeah, I think, like, I'm definitely resonating with this. I'm also kind of not even like working on a wound, but like, as in, I write a lot, and I have a group I share with about 50 people, where I share like really deep, intimate stuff. And I've also started sharing some of it on Instagram. And it's like, it's not about getting a virality or having like becoming like famous, but I sometimes get like messages from people I know and don't know that'll be like this. I'm in the same situation, or this like really changed something for me. And it obviously, there's this wound or this like idea sometimes too. It's like, oh, do I really want to share like my personal life? Like, it's like, do I need that? But then at the same time, well, can I help other people that are maybe not like as strong as me, or not in that like mindset just yet? So I think it's beautiful that you're putting in the work to do this. And I also know, like, for some people, I believe that it's not in their path. I think it's also in my path. Like, I think I was given a voice and I know how to use it because I'm meant to do it. But it's a tough world, right? It's like, and it's also like very unforgiving sometimes. And people are being trolled a lot when they're like have a name online, and a lot of people are mean to them. But ultimately, I think it all comes down to like asking yourself like why you're doing something. And I think the big red flag, if you're doing something to be famous so that people will love you, then that's not why you should be doing it. You should do it like because you want to help people, or because you feel like it's your call to like share some certain information. I've seen a lot in the Kundalini space, because there's a lot of misinformation about what Kundalini is and what Kundalini activations are. And some of the people that have voices and platforms are spreading a lot of really toxic information. Whereas some of the best healers that actually like have a lot of like knowledge and like are very authentic, they're not sharing. And they're like, well, I don't want to share and contribute to this. And I'm kind of like, I get it. But also, like, if you're someone who knows your stuff and have your incentives in order, why aren't you sharing, so that you can get like, so you can take some of like eradicate some of all this misinformation? But I don't have all the answers here. It's difficult.
No. I mean, I literally had that thought yesterday about something similar, because I think if they were to ask themselves why they're not defending it, a lot of times, and I don't know if this is the same in the Kundalini space, but they say like, I'm taking the higher road, or I'm not going to lower myself to that vibration. And so I'll use a specific example, but there's in the witchcraft community, I think it's pretty widely known that witchcraft is political. You know, it has been throughout history. It's been a political issue. And there's a very famous witch who's on Instagram. And I guess she's been getting a lot of requests from people to talk about what's going on with the genocide in Gaza. And she made a whole video about why she's not doing that. And her whole video was like, I'm choosing love and I'm choosing higher vibration. And it's like, okay, but I don't think anyone in the space is asking you to, you know, say something that's not authentic to you. And you didn't even have to make this video. If you truly didn't want to be a part of it or address it, why did you even make the video? Because all it's coming off right now as is spiritual bypassing. And for the people, to your point, who have a platform, I wonder sometimes if the issue is that they don't want to have to deal with the chance that they have to deal with difficult comments, or they lose followers or people who like them or whatnot. But again, if it's doing more harm to the community because you're not speaking and you have these other voices who are speaking, isn't there some sort of, you know, internal responsibility that you feel as an expert or as a figure in this space to speak up for the things that you believe in the way that feels authentic to you? I've definitely seen some Kundalini videos where there's people that have gotten a lot of support, and maybe you can tell me about this because I don't know enough about it, right? But they've gotten a lot of support from others, and they're talking about how you should not do a Kundalini activation because it's really, really dangerous and you can screw up your whole life and like everything could fall apart for you, and they've seen it and it's just super toxic. And I mean, that's certainly not the experience that I've had. I'm sure there's, depending on who you go to, anyone can be harmful, right? But I haven't seen other videos, to your point, saying, okay, but that's not a common thing, or that's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a lot of there's a lot of like Christian propaganda. It's quite,
Yeah,
I think there's actually,
always.
there must be organizations that are doing this, because when I notice on TikTok, it just seems like it's almost like organized. That's like, oh, this is Satan's work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not a Christian, but like, I believe that like someone like Jesus was working with Kundalini energy. Like, to me, that's very clear, right? But back to the kind of platform thing, maybe I have a little bit of a different view there, because I get really triggered when people are forcing people to have an opinion on something. I think like when it's your platform, it's up to you what you want to talk about. There was a quite famous yoga teacher in the Asaka community who was approached by a former student, and she was like comment on the Gaza thing, and he was really rude and was like, stop like bothering me, and he used like profanities. That was not okay. But I also understand from your perspective, if you're someone like who's have a platform and you've decided like this is what I share about, I just find the whole forcing people to share about something is like, I don't know, a bit problematic, because you're still a person. And like, I never share about wars. I have never shared about any war, because for me, I wouldn't know where to start, where to end, because I'm like, if I'm sharing about this one, well, shouldn't I also share about that one? And like, it's just a choice that I've made. Yeah. Maybe we look at that differently, but I don't think you ought to be speaking about everything.
No. And I mean, I'm one of those people who's like, there's room for all opinions. I might not agree with others' opinions, but I actually very strongly feel that we have to have difference of opinions, because the same, herd thinking is really detrimental. I mean, where I come from in the US, right, it's a really big problem right now is that there's so much division and hate among different groups that are fighting against each other that there's no room for listening, and there's a lot of common things. And I think if they would just talk more, they would understand that the true enemy that they're upset about is not either or any of them, but they're not allowing difference of opinions, right? And so I do think it's very, very important to share different opinions and have different opinions. And I certainly don't feel like anyone should be forced to talk about anything they don't want to talk about. I think my issue in this particular case is if you have a platform and it is something that you are, like you're talking specifically about Kundalini, right? So if somebody's maligning it, why would you not? There's something there for me that's like, there's a reason why you're not defending something that you apparently live for and are very aligned with. Or maybe there's not. Maybe you're just like, this isn't worth my time. I'm not going to do it.
You could also take the approach that whatever you're giving energy, you're feeding, right? Like, because like that's also like an intentional strategy by a lot of people to like provoke. And every time you give energy to something, like you're feeding it. So I do think there's something there. Again, it depends on what it is.
I think my whole thing is like, I guess two things in the case of what I was speaking about. The first thing is, if you don't want to talk about it, then just don't talk about it at all? Why do you make a specific video using a very problematic bypassing way of thinking of just like, I'm love and light, and love and light doesn't stop genocide. So that's just don't do the video then. Just completely continue to ignore it. And if you lose followers because you're not talking about it, that's fine, but you're staying true to yourself. It just felt very strange. And like, yeah, I mean, I don't post a lot of political stuff because, like I said, I have my views. I talk about it. I hope it's well known, my views. If you really have a problem listening to the other things that I say because of my views, that's fine. You're more than welcome to not subscribe to anything I'm saying. But for me, like, I will always speak out about issues that I consider to be something to do with the planet. My brain has completely lost the word ecological. Environmental, that was it. Any environmental issues, like, that's very near and dear to my heart. And just that, like, no matter what side of the discussions you sit on, I always believe that human life is of the utmost importance and no life is worth more than the other. So I will always speak on those issues on my platform. But again, that is my choice to do that.
So I completely get like the fears around like putting yourself out. I think for me, that's not the fear, at least yet. Like, I've shared a lot of vulnerable things. I remember, so I was diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago, but it's a whole other story. I don't even identify with having it anymore because I think I've worked through the things that was giving it to me, and I'm, off meds and all these things. But for a period, it was helping me, and it was like I was identifying with it. And I remember putting it on LinkedIn, and some people are like, isn't that like a bit bold? Like, what if like some people, it's like a mental illness? And I was like, I only want to work with people that are okay with people being open about these things. So that's a great filter. Yes, I will push some people away, but those people weren't like authentically people that I should be aligning myself with anyway. And same, I've been sharing about a heartbreak on LinkedIn. And like for a lot of people, that's like, but not in a, oh, listen to me, I have a heartbreak, but in a way where it was like a learning experience. Because I think everything, as you said, we choose our learnings in life and like these big things. And I think heartbreak is one of the most transformational experiences that we go through. I saying back to the love and light thing, so many people think that spirituality is about light, blah, blah, blah. And like, no, everything is duality. It's through polarity that we get to experience life. So if we only talk about feeling great and amazing, that's not a realistic interpretation of life. And I'm like, when people ask how I've become so like chill or so calm, I'm like, because of the darkness and the pain. Like, so I share about these things, and I'm not so afraid of what people will say. I think it's also exhausting to sometimes have to share all of you. So it's also, I think I'm just being more cognizant of sharing with delay, because I also think you can ruin manifestations and you can ruin things if you're sharing about them a little bit too early. So I think there's some strategy in just like not sharing live, like real time, but sharing after you've processed something.
Yeah. That's a great segue, actually, talking about love life, because I wanted to talk with you about twin flames, because this is also something that I have been seeing a lot on the socials of people talking about finding their twin flame, or, you pass by those tarot card readers all the time or doing these collective readings, and like your twin flame is coming in. And I actually watched this documentary. I don't know if you saw it. I think it was called Twin Flame Academy. Came out like
it's on Netflix.
Yeah, and it was interesting in the nicest sense of the word, but I feel like the whole twin flame thing has really, much like Kundalini actually, gotten so many different views on it, and some are super toxic. You were talking about how you've had a twin flame experience, so I just kind of wanted to talk to you more about that whole side of things for people who have not been in this twin flame universe.
Yes. Okay. So back to I watched the same documentary years ago, and at this point, I'd never heard of a twin flames. That was my first like introduction to it, and obviously it was super culty. It was super like taking advantage of like weak people, and like I'm with you there. And I guess I watched this like maybe 7 months before I met my own twin flame. And when I met my twin flame, I didn't realize I met my twin flame. It was just like this. I think what I had was like a Kundalini awakening by meeting this person. Like, I felt like I was going absolutely crazy. I've never been so like destabilized in like a matter of a few days. And I think, as you said, there's a lot of misinformation. I think, first of all, a twin flame is not a soulmate. A lot of people are like, oh, I met my twin, it's my soulmate. And a twin flame is not something you like search for, like, oh, I manifested my twin flame. Like, to me, I think you choose a twin before going into life. Like it's actually like it's a life lesson that it's a thing that you want to learn in a life that requires you to actually like be a split soul so that you go looking for that other side. And it's not like there can be love, sure, but it's ultimately about like inner union within yourself and like healing parts of you that will make you feel whole. And this person is a mirror in the sense that they will trigger all of your worst insecurities if you haven't like healed those sides of yourself. I don't believe everyone has a twin flame. I don't think like I think it depends on what your mission in life is. And I think for someone to be a twin flame, there has to be that mirroring aspect. There's a lot of weird synchronicities, like a lot of things where you're like, this cannot be random. Like for example, me, I've moved to where my twin flame was, like years before meeting him. I moved around the world where he was, and just without really being able to explain to you why I moved there, right? Yeah. So my own thing was like that weird like soul recognition. We were in a relationship. We broke up, and then as we broke up, that's actually what reactivated my Kundalini again and fully took me down this like spiritual path. That pain. I mean, I'm still in it in the sense that I can't tell you what the end is, but I don't think you ever fully can end a twin flame. I think it's like you will coexist, like obviously until the person like dies, and then maybe they'll be in spirit form. But ultimately, the way to like navigate it or like what to take from it is really to be like, what is this mirror showing me? Like, what is it that I need to heal or work on in order to like be whole, even like without this person? Because like when you're in like need or thinking that you need someone to complete you, then you're not like healed. So yeah, my experience was pretty wild, and I think I only understood that it was a twin flame like till after we broke up because of that like insane energy that just happened. My dreams were just insane. I started like developing like my clairvoyant skills, like, feeling like big surges of emotion coming from him and his daughter. And I started getting these like crazy like psychic dreams with so many like signals. Yeah. So tying it back, I think it's a widely misunderstood subject. And had you asked me a year ago, I would have laughed and said like these things don't exist. I was definitely not someone who was searching for it. But I must say, when you were on that like journey, you do realize like just like people who are not on it will never understand because it does seem pretty insane.
Yeah.
I
I
admit
feel
that.
like that about in general, any type of spiritual awakening, anyone who hasn't done it, you just sound like the craziest person when you say some of the stuff. But then when you say it to other people, they're like, oh, totally. I get what you're saying, you know? But I think it's really interesting because we briefly talked about it when we were in the car. And I was saying I've been with my husband for 18 years
Mm.
and I don't see him as my twin flame. And I don't personally believe in soulmates in the traditional sense of how people see soulmates, because I do believe that we kind of have the experiences and people in our life when we come in. But for me personally, and this might be my neurodivergent speaking, I don't like the idea that you don't have free will with what happens to you. And for some reason, soulmate to me sounds very much like this is the person that you're going to end up with, whether you like it or not, like because it's chosen for you. And I think you probably have people that you put into your path to be part of your life, but you have to choose to do that, if that makes sense. I say this now, God, I hope it doesn't happen that I have some sort of twin flame that I've planned to come into my life in 10 years. I also, side note, I think twin flames can also be like friends and things like that in your life. I think you mentioned that sometimes there's love. I don't necessarily think it always has to be a love situation. Do you think it's always love?
So back to the soul thing. I think we believe that someone. I don't believe that soulmate is like a one person. I believe a soulmate is someone that you've had resonance with or like spend significant time with in like several lives. And that I think there's usually like several. There might not just be one. There might be a few that you've had more lives with that you're like, I like this soul. Let's do more of these reincarnation together. And so it's not like this soulmate's the only one you will end up with. I see soulmates as like there are probably, let's say, a handful of souls that you generally like to end up with, and those are the ones that you could end up with. So like where you're not with your husband, there's probably another really soul delight one that you've had other lives with. But I do think back to the free will. I think you have free will when you go into a life. I think you've decided that. Like you and your husband probably agreed, we will meet and we'll have this beautiful staple like romance, and it will teach me security so that I can put my voice out in the world, for example. So that's back to the soulmate thing. But the twin thing, I believe I think, yeah, sure, it can be friendship or that. But the problem with it, because it's like a mirror to yourself and your soul, being shown yourself is like a catalyst for this deep love, because like you're like, well, I love this because I love me, or I want
Mm,
this. So I think a lot of the time, yeah, like after you process it, it might end up being like a deep friendship, but that requires a lot of integration and a lot of ability to like see your shadows and like work with them. Because I think ultimately, when you're in this, like it's hard to imagine like life without them, at least when you're in like the depth of it. So the thing is, when you're like on the twin flame journey, it sounds so cliche, but when you are, you attract other people that are going through the same thing. So I know quite a few people that are going through like twin flame journey, and some of them are like women, like you said, that were like happily married for many years, and then suddenly they meet their twin flame, and the twin flame can be, I don't know, 30 years older or 30 years younger, and it's like highly destabilizing, because like when you suddenly like hit with this immense force and like something you don't understand. But someone that I follow is like kind of like a mentor in this space who's helped me a lot. She's married with kids with someone she considers soulmate. She's still like friends with her twin flame, but like it wasn't easy getting there, right? Like it wasn't like a walk in the park, and it's definitely like challenged her relationship. So I don't believe that, yeah, you have to be with your twin flame. However, I think a twin flame is, if you can be with your twin flame in a healthy way, it probably means that you're quite like advanced as a soul, because you've decided to like integrate all your shadows and still like, be able to be faced with that mirror. So, it all depends. I see comments on things where people are like, oh, if only my twin flame would awaken, if only my twin flame would do that, my only, and I'm always like, well, if your twin flame is not, there's usually something that you need to work on, or like it's a mirror.
mm.
Yeah. And I often get very frustrated with my twin flame too, but I try to tie it back to like, okay, like what is this teaching me about me? And how can I become more whole without this person?
So you're going through the breakup. Was it a while ago or is it something newer?
Yeah, like, I mean, it was in December.
Mm.
Like my twin and I are currently like in a separation state again. We were just spending a lot of time together. I think he's like awakened to like the depth of our connection and is like terribly afraid. I don't blame him. It's pretty crazy, and it took me a long time to like accept. But yeah, it's like it's funny because like people that haven't experienced it are just like, oh, it's just a breakup, like just move on or like go on dates. But I'm like, no, it's like a, because like the further away I am from him and the more I try to like block him out, the more he will appear in my like psychic life. So it's like
Mm.
I would rather like find a way to like balance him in my waking life, because I don't want to dream about him every night. Like that's that's highly frustrating. So no, thank you.
So how are you moving through life now? Are you trying to like how do you move on from this? Because if it is something that's so incredibly connected to you that you feel like you always have this connection, how do you move on from that? Or do you?
So like personally think for in our case, I think our like soul contract was for him to awaken me. He was like very like conceptually awakened when we met, and I wasn't. And I think this Kundalini experience that he triggered in me awakened me to a whole new level. And then I think the soul contract was for me to awaken him like in an embodied way. And I have recently done that. He just had like a very like intense Kundalini experience with me, and I think that really like shifted some things. But obviously from having that experience and actually integrating into your life, that's like a whole other story. But I truly feel like I've done my job in terms of like I've started the domino bricks
Mhm.
that I need to start. People have free will and you can't make them do anything. And like ultimately everything has to be like your own experience. But I think what I've learned through this is like I know what my shadows are. I know what the mirror is showing me. And I know that the only path forward is to me is to be my, like, to stand in my power and be the highest version of myself, the most expressive version of myself. Like through this, I was shown this like wound around again, the whole pleasing, like fitting in, being like, I'm cool with less than, like, I can just lower my expectation. And that's something that I've recently been like, you know what? No, I'm an all or nothing girl. And like, if you can't handle it, you can't handle it. And that in itself feels so healing, because I'm like, no, that's massive improvement. Like the younger me would like, "Oh, you prefer me with brown hair? I guess I like brown hair too. I'll just dye my hair brown." Where now I'm like, no way. Like this is it or nothing. So I'm learning to stand in my power, and I think I'm learning to not make everything in life about love. I think in the last this 2025, I've just been shown like how amazing like female friendship is. I've kind of like not avoided men, but like I'm intentionally pouring more time and energy into women. I think sisterhood is like so beautiful. And ultimately, like even if you're in a happy marriage, you still need your friends, and your friends are for life. Like you go through break ups, but your friends are there if you're good friends. So that's how I look at it. And then it's funny because years ago, if you asked me, I would look at dating as like a, oh, it's a numbers game. You just got to put yourself out there and like, and now I'm just like, no, it's an alignment game. Like as long as you're in alignment with your soul and your authentic self, you will attract the people that you need to attract. They will come to you. So don't waste your time chasing.
Yeah. No, I'm totally aligned with you on that one. I used to do a lot of tarot readings, a lot of psychic readings about love, right? And it makes sense. Like at our core, we all want to be loved and love, right? But you're so right that there's so many different ways to experience love, and we just have it so focused on romantic. I love my husband with my whole heart. He is my stability. He is my safe space. He is home for me. Like he is just the most comfortable, safe love for me. And I think that that's what I wanted in life. And the rest of my life is chaos all the time. I think I need that, North Star kind of situation. The love I have for my friends and my daughters, for example, my animals, like they're all very different and they're all fulfilling in a different way. The love that I have for myself, on the other hand, is a whole nother level. And when I am feeling completely in love with myself, in my worth, honoring myself, all of the love around me just flows and fits perfectly. Whenever I'm not feeling in love with myself, or I'm being critical of myself, or I'm doing something that's against my, like you were saying, standing in my power, I see it reflected back for me in this lifetime in the people around me and the love that I receive. If I'm not fully loving myself, all of the other love in my life is somehow like just off. And when I used to do these tarot readings and these psychic readings, and maybe there's a good reason that no one asks me to do them for them anymore, but all of the information that I would get was around the fact of you need to do something within yourself and then it will show up naturally. So and I'm not joking, and I think maybe again, this is because of how I work and that I'm a healer and I work with people to feel good about themselves, but it was always, whether it was psychic or tarot, it was like, you need to stop looking externally for love. When you focus on loving yourself, doing everything for yourself that you wish other people would do for you, it's going to show up in your life. It'll come to you. You will magnetically pull it to you, and you will pull the aligned love that is good enough for you. Like you were saying, you don't have to change yourself. You don't have to do things that aren't in your, best interests, or make yourself smaller for this love, because when you truly are fully operating from a place of love and power in yourself, it's like moths to a flame,
But that's the thing. If you're operating from lack, you're pushing, like the energy is like you're repelling things away. And I think a lot of the time, like women, we're being fed this whole, like everything is this narrative that like you need a husband, you need kids. And like I want these things, don't get me wrong. But I've come to the realization is the only way I can have those things is to fully love myself and not need it. Be fully in a place where I like the sentence, but I'm happy either way. When you're happy either way, you're truly like at the vibration of like receiving something. But when you're like, well, I'll only be happy if I meet a guy and then he buys me a house and then I can have kids and then I'll be happy. That you're taking your own power away, and you're also making yourself like a victim to life, which I really don't like. So I think rather than focusing so much on like, how can I date more? How can I go on more dates? How can I change my hair? I mean, we're talking, it's like, no, how can I make adjustments in my life so that I'm truly happy with the life that I'm living, the nest that I have for myself? Because then you're vibrating at a whole other level.
Totally. And it goes back to what you opened up this whole interview with, is surrender, because you're trying to control all these situations and control what you want the outcome to be. And the reality is, of when you just let go of, if I do this and if I do that and whatever, and you just go, you know what, I'm just gonna do me. I'm gonna surrender to the universe this wish of this love to come in, and I'm just gonna make sure that I love my life, and I'm not gonna try to control anything. That's when things happen. And it's again in that receiving feminine energy. I'm not going to try to go out and manipulate this whole thing to be what I want it to be, because then you also shove people into boxes. Then disregard things you're not okay with, right? It's okay. He fits these other things. And it's like, if it's not something that you fully want, and again, I will caveat this by saying, make sure you're not operating from wounded parts of yourself that think they need or want something that they don't actually need or want. And you've worked on yourself and you're in a good state. If somebody's not making you feel loved, if someone's not fitting into your life in the way that makes you happy, that's just because they're not meant for you. But if you're settling for that, then you're telling the universe, I'm okay with this. This is fine for now. You have to really, it's not, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's easy. And I never will sugarcoat it and say the internal work and the other work that you do is easy, but it's hella rewarding. It's how you get to live the super happy life, whatever
Mm,
that means for you. I have so many friends that are single that don't want kids. I have friends that are married without kids. I have friends who are
mm,
not married without kids. I have friends who don't want to have a relationship because they're super happy on their own. Like, you can live whatever way makes you the most happy. That's just the only thing
mm.
that's important.
I think actually this kind of it kind of leads me to the fact that like I think the twin flame journey is about understanding what real unconditional love is. And
Mm,
real unconditional love, as in I think that's one thing that I've learned through this is like you can have a relationship that's not real unconditional love. And you can not be in a relationship and have real unconditional love. And also you choose who you love. Like I think through this experience I've learned that like, I want to be a mother. I hope it's in my path, but also if not, that does not mean I don't have anywhere to give my love. Like I can decide who I love and I can decide to love children or animals or people. But I think there's so much like over rationalization in today's society. Like I used to be the girl that would have just like a tick box. Like he needs to be this tall, he needs to have blue eyes, he needs to work in this industry and like and yeah, I mean it's good to have like, something that you think you'll resonate with, but when it all comes down to it, that's not what's love. Like when you're really like met with love, you're suddenly like, wait, all these things is what I thought mattered, but in reality, this is what matters. And it's more like it's like a feeling and it's a state that is almost like goes against all logic. And I have some friends that I still feel like maybe are left to have this experience of like true love that are very like, oh, but I know how to get a guy to pursue me. Like I know how to get a guy to like be crazy about me. I just do this and then that. And then I ghost a little and then I'm in my feminine. I'm like, but who cares? That's not love. That's like validation. Good for you. Like, you know how to do that. But like, you cannot do that. You can't manipulate love. That's at least in my experience. And I think adding to further to that, as women, especially in Denmark, constantly being fed this narrative of like our eggs are expiring. I agree. Like people are waiting a long time to have kids, but it's like this fear-based energy of like, oh, as a woman, like just have them with someone, lower your standards, or go and freeze your eggs, and then you're all good because of science. And I used to want to do that, and I used to be someone who was like, everyone should freeze their eggs by 30. But as I've gotten more spiritual, I've realized like if I'm meant to have a baby, I will have a baby. Like it's not about me forcing things or freezing things or, like doing all these artificial things. I'm like, it will happen when it's meant to happen. And that may not be in this life, but then it wasn't meant to be.
yeah. I mean, I think ultimately what I feel around having kids is if you want to have kids because kids will make you happy, then you should have kids any way that you need to. I always wanted to adopt a kid. We had our kids through
Um,
IVF, and then I wanted to adopt a kid, and my husband was like, I don't want to adopt a kid, and so I didn't adopt a kid. And what I realized was just that, like you were saying, you can give your love to whoever you want to. I just wanted to give my love to as many people who needed love as possible. And then I just realized I can, quote unquote, adopt a kid in a different way where I don't have them in the house. I adopt people. Adopt people. I donate money. We had a Ukrainian family living in our house at one point. Like I've just learned to give my love to those who need it in different ways. That's just not as an adoptive mother in this case,
mm.
right? If you want to have kids, there are so many different ways to have kids, but make sure that you want to have kids because you want to have kids. Because
Yeah, and,
I
and
know
because it's coming from love, right? That's what you're
exactly.
talking about is you have this feeling of I have love to give. And that's beautiful. That's also how I feel about it. But whenever it's coming from I'm gonna miss out or
Yeah.
I have lack, as in if I don't have
I'm
that,
not
then
good
all my
enough
friends
if I
will
don't
have it.
have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's like, ooh, that's problematic, right? And I do think that it's great that we're asking these questions, but there's just so much fear, like so much fear around this. And I mean, it's great that we have these technologies like, IVF, but I just think this whole idea, like I must do this,
Mhm.
otherwise things will not happen for me. That's fear. And I don't like that.
No, I don't either. But that's why I'm saying, like, if it's something that you truly want, then you should do
Mm,
it. But as women, especially with kids, I mean, I struggled with this because I had to do IVF. We tried for a year to
mm,
get pregnant. It
mm,
didn't work. My whole family has fertility issues, so it's not like it was a huge surprise.
mm,
But I hoped that I would be able to have kids because I had based part of my worth on being able to get pregnant. And
mm,
so when I was not able to get naturally pregnant, that massively affected my sense of self-worth because I felt
mm,
like I had been so conditioned that having children, being able to get pregnant, that was part of your worth as a woman. So I massively internalized that there was something wrong with me. I was not good enough. I was not a good enough woman. And then when my second daughter was born 3 months early, it's like, well, great. Now I can't even frickin' stay pregnant because it was my fault. My placenta abrupted, that was part of my journey. That was part of what I had to go through. And that's also why I have a lot of love for women who are questioning if they want kids. Because I'm like, if you want kids because it feels absolutely authentic to you and you want them because you want to raise a child, because you have to raise that child. It's a very long responsibility and you have to raise them for the next generation with love, which when you're a mother, I'm also all the moms that I work with. I super strong line that you have to prioritize yourself with a mom because you have to take care of yourself first. It's scientifically proven that your children will be better mentally and happiness wise when their mother is mentally happy and emotionally happy. So I'm very much like, you have to prioritize yourself, but it's hard. It's a lot of hard work. So if you're only wanting to have kids because you feel like that's the next step on your journey, or because society has conditioned you that you have to have kids, then you shouldn't have kids until you're really clear that you want them for you.
But at the same time, I've also noticed I've met quite a few women too that are just not believing that they're good enough. Because it's like you see everything on social media. It's like, yeah, I want kids, but will I be good enough? Like as a mother, like I haven't done X, Y, Z. It's like it's not like you have to be perfect to be a mother. Like you're a human being.
You won't
and I
be.
think
You won't be perfect.
yeah, those are also the same people that will like, look at their parents and be like, my mom did this and she's so terrible. And I'm like, but your mom is a human too. We're all I wouldn't even say we're all living life for the first time because I don't believe that. But like in this life, we're doing it for the first time.
We forget everything, right? So for all intents and purposes, no, you're right. Yeah, but a lot of times we don't think about the fact that our parents are parents. Like my mom and I have a very difficult relationship, but I always know everything she did, whether it affected me negatively or not, that came from her wounds or her love for me, not wanting me to have the same thing. So you're never going to be a perfect parent. You just have to want to be, I guess, is the main core thing.
I had a beautiful Kundalini experience where I did a session on my mom. And then afterwards she said, I felt all the lives where you were my mom. And I was like, that really resonates with me. I'm pretty sure I've been her mom in many lives. So maybe that's also why I have this like level of compassion. Like my mom was by no means perfect, but I don't hold any kind of resentment or grudge because I know she did the best with the resources and knowledge she had available at the time.
Yeah. I'm sure my mom's not listening to this, but if you are, I feel the same way. She always thinks that I'm so mad at her all the time. And I'm like, I had a period of that, but I've gotten over that and accepted and processed and released that I love you. And I know everything that you do, even to this day, is from a place of love. I definitely think I was the mom in some lives. And I know that my youngest daughter was my mom. Last night, my husband is so tired of my shit, I'll tell you. I guess like a lot of women, there was that trend of like, if I was a worm, would you love me? Like I do that to a whole different level with him. And he's like falling asleep. And I'm like, do you think you were ever the woman and I was the man? He's like, no, never thought about it. I'm like, really? I think about that
but
all
also
the
like
time.
He might pretend like he doesn't care. But the thing is, they like a bit of crazy, right? You're keeping things spicy.
Yeah. Totally. He does. He's like we have a very Dharma and Greg relationship.
Yeah.
He's the like buttoned up suit finance guy and I'm the crazy hippie lady. So I do really think that he finds it very, I did say that to him the other day. I said, do you ever get bored? And he was like, when would I have time for that? And it's like, yeah, that's true. It's a constant stream. But anyway, I could literally talk to you forever. So maybe you're going to have to come back on the podcast another time. But it has been such a pleasure talking to you.
It was very beautiful to be invited here. Thank you so much. I will see you in Copenhagen. I really appreciate this talk today.